Hey, Blake T. Wild here, and today I am discussing actually one of my favorite issues or little sections of Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. Batman Legends of the Dark Knight was one of the most popular and successful Batman-related comic spin-offs that DC has just ever published in their run of history. It's well over 200 pages, almost 30 years of publication, and featured dozens upon dozens of fantastic comic book creators since it was an anthology series. I have briefly spoken of Legends of the Dark Knight in my Frank Miller Batman analysis video, so check that out if you're interested. But I've never actually covered one of the stories before. And the stories in Legends of the Dark Knight are more often than not pretty early on in Batman's career, usually from year 1 to about year 3 or 4, if you want to go that far. It's typically in that center of time, before he gets Robin, before he's really established. That's typically what I've seen is where they take place. There's, off brands. There's, of course, stories where that doesn't happen, but that seems to be a general consensus of where they take place. And typically they really toe the line, these stories, between what is in continuity and what's not. And DC seemingly just follows the classic, oh, well, if people like it, we'll add it to canon or let it be in the main continuity. If not, oh well. And this one follows that second run, because no one wanted to follow in this route that they decided to take with Batman. It's not like it's crazy or some shit like that. It's not like they're doing something super different with it. It's just a retelling of Mr. Freeze's origin story. And it doesn't even venture that far off from the animated series. It just sort of builds upon the basic building blocks of Heart of Ice, which, if you're unfamiliar, is Mr. Freeze's background. His origin is that his wife Nora was terminally ill, so he froze her, and then he sort of just goes crazy, blah, 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 because of Mr. Freeze. This one, it gets a little weird, but it's pretty much all there, and I think it really works as a new, updated retelling of it that everyone just kind of ignored and no one wanted to play around with. But the primary reason I wanted to talk about this book, because I've been wanting to cover this for a couple of years now, is because it's by one of my favorite comic creators and artists, Seth Fisher. He did the artwork on this, and Seth Fisher is absolutely incredible. I'm sure hardly anybody watching this video has any idea who Seth Fisher is. Seth Fisher was Jeff Darrow level of detail meets Steve Ditko's level of cartoony art style, and it just works so well. His art is just wholly his, completely unique to himself. It looks nothing like anything you'd see coming from any Batman-related comics, and it just has so much life to it, and it's just so much fun, and Dave Stewart, the colorist, just does such a great job on Seth's artwork. Seth also worked on 2 other DC graphic novels, one of which was Green Lantern Will World, and the other is The Flash Time Flies. He also did 2 issues of John Arcuti's Doom Patrol, and created a series at Vertigo called Vertigo Pop Tokyo. Over at Marvel, Seth Fisher worked on an issue of Spider-Man Unlimited, and Fantastic Four Iron Man Big in Japan by Zeb Wells. Unfortunately, though, in 2006, Seth Fisher unfortunately died. He apparently fell 7 stories off of a rooftop from a club in Osaka, Japan, seemingly having gone there to celebrate finishing the final pages and issue of Big in Japan story that he was working on. Fisher's apparent love of rooftops and lifelong desire to control his own fears, the same desire that led him to taking up inline skating at the age of 16 and bringing his portfolios to San Diego Comic-Con every year no matter what, led him to hate, quote, the idea that he was uncomfortable around heights, and he challenged himself to do what he feared, to not let fear have power over him. And following his death, Seth Fisher's friend Langdon Foss had this to say. His long-term goals were not so much professional or artistic. He wanted to help the world. If that meant becoming a good artist, he would. If that meant learning to understand people to the point where he could call anybody in the world his friend, that's what he would do. I think the greatest loss here is not the loss of a fine visual artist, but of an incredibly compassionate man who wanted to help humanity. Seth was on the street, in the club. He was loving people. That's what he was all about. If you want to read more about Seth Fisher, I would highly recommend you check out his comics, but you can also check out his website, which is still active, floweringnose.com. I'll leave it in the link in the description. That's where I got a fair amount of the information that I just discussed is from the obituary written for Seth by his mother that was posted along that website. It has various other information. That's where I got those photos that were playing over the video of Seth Fisher. But yeah, I would highly recommend checking it out. I'd also highly recommend checking out Seth Fisher's other works, because they're all fantastic. But yeah, I just wanted to get his name out there, because you never hear anybody talk about Seth Fisher, and I think he was just a great cartoonist that was just gone way too soon, and I wanted to share my love of his work with the world. So let's get right into it. Released in 2005, written by J.H. Williams III and scripted by Dan Curtis Johnson with art by Seth Fisher. This is Batman Snow. The book begins with a bunch of cute little bats flying around Gotham and the neighboring affluent manor outside of Gotham, Wayne Manor. Alfred Pennyworth is awoken in the middle of the night by strange sounds. He grabs his giant flashlight and begins investigating the manor. Eventually, his search leads him through the study of his master, into a dark hidden walkway behind a bookshelf, and down a flight of stairs into the labyrinthine catacombs beneath the manor, where he finds Batman strung over rocks and stalagmites, soaked in blood. And look at that little bat. He's like, meow, holy shit, you singing this, Alfred? Batman's dying. The next morning, Alfred has stabilized Bruce Wayne, who's now wide awake, writing notes, and asking for coffee. And Bruce asks Alfred if he thinks that he's doing more than he can manage, and then proceeds to explain to Alfred that he was so close to uncovering the plot involving a brand new character invented specifically for this comic named Peter Skoda. Batman mistakenly thought that the messenger was a contact that Skoda and his gang were waiting for, and by the time he realized he had struck way too soon, he was already committed to it. So he fought through a big-ass group of goons as Skoda escaped out of the building. Bruce gave chase, and unfortunately, Skoda got the upper hand when he doubled back and just waited around a corner and shot Batman. And this is one of my favorite parts of the book. I really appreciate this, because like I said at the top, this is Batman still early on in his career. It's kind of, for all intents and purposes, Golden Age Batman, where he was focusing on organized crime and fighting gangsters and mobsters and stuff like that. And Bruce still isn't Batman as we think of him yet. This is more or less year one Batman, maybe like year 2 or year 2.5 Batman. He's still making mistakes. He's still, not thinking things through entirely. It's like in year 1 where Batman's fighting those robbers on the fire escape, and he's just getting his shit kicked in, and he almost knocks one of them off to his death, and he's just dying out of breath, just exhausted on this fire escape. He's like, oh my God, what am I doing every night? Why am I doing this? We're still at that point of Batman in this scenario. And he makes mistakes here too. He acts too quickly and too brashly. He could have easily escaped the hired goons that were surrounding him with, various weapons, but instead he decides to fight each one of them. And he even tells Alfred that he just needed to get through Skoda's people first. And Alfred's like, wow, you make it sound so easy. He just outright lies to Alfred through the whole scene when he says it was pretty easy for the most part. He doesn't tell Alfred how haggard he was after fighting 7 dudes armed with various weapons like bats and crowbars and guns and shit. Probably got shot a few times from one of them too. And they're just ganging up on him. All he says is that the goons were keeping him busy before he could get the chance to chase after Skoda. And then once he does chase after Skoda, what does he do? He fucking says, Skoda doubled back, and somehow I missed him. He speaks about it like Skoda's like an evil genius or something. No. Bruce just had his head bashed around. He's probably on the verge of a concussion. He's winded. He's pushing himself too hard after this dude he's just so preoccupied with making up for the fact that he made a mistake and making that worth the effort, because he's already gone through and fought those 7 dudes. He's already fucked up from that. He may as well go after the guy and blindly chase after him. And he just races around a corner without even considering the fact that Skoda could be waiting there for him, or someone else with a gun could be waiting there for him. Look at his position running into this panel. This is not a Batman who has prepped every possible angle or scenario that could happen that night. This is a Batman who is haphazardly running in blind without thinking it through. Anyway, Alfred asks when the last time Bruce got a full night's rest was, excluding being unconscious from blood loss, and Bruce thinks about it. Might have been February. Seemingly, we're near the end of the year, probably fall or so, based on where everything looks like, so it's been a while. Alfred tells his master that Bruce needs to stop taking everything on by himself. He can't act like he's the only person in the world. Bruce continues taking his notes and says that he has plenty of allies. Gordon, Dent, etc. Then Bruce says that Batman is more than enough to take on Gotham's problems, and Alfred looks out the window towards Gotham Bay and softly says, "Assuming Gotham's problems stay the same." Across town in the Gotham suburbs, a man and his wife finish breakfast as they prepare to go about their days. The woman tells her husband that she has a doctor's appointment today at 11 about her tremors, and the man tells his wife, Nora, it'll probably be nothing and all she'll need is a prescription. Then Victor Fries. I say Victor Fries, like, ice, but it has an FR at the beginning. Just because I think that sounds more like a name than Victor Fries, or Victor Fries, or however else. I don't know, that's how I've always said it, just because it sounds neat. How do you pronounce Victor Fries? Fries. Anyway, he puts on his employee badge for this new company created entirely for this comic, Neodigm, and says that once the project he's involved with is over, he's gonna get a bump in management and they can pay off the house and then start having a family. Later, Victor arrives and meets with a member of his project team named Eddie. Eddie brings up the issues that he has with the cryogenic project being a military contract. Victor tells him that they all knew who was signing their checks, but Victor assures him that they're not making a weapon. They're making a deterrent. And nobody uses a deterrent. Later, Victor gets called into his boss's office, and his boss, Derek Park, informs Victor that he is to write a test proposal for an outdoor test over a wide area against simulated human targets. Victor has some apprehension about this, and Derek tells him that either Victor writes it or he does, because they really need funding for the next year. Then the meeting is interrupted by the receptionist who informs Victor that she received a call from the hospital and that there's been an emergency with his wife. Later that afternoon, in the Gotham Second Bank, a short old man armed with a shotgun holds the bank hostage as Detective James Gordon and the rest of the GCPD surround the building. The man walks around shouting, but then he's distracted by some screws falling to the floor. And then Batman explodes out of a vent, and the next thing the GCPD knows, the robber is thrown out of a window, followed by his bent-up shotgun. Later, after the sun has set, Gordon explodes at Batman. He says that one of the hostages was nearly shot when Batman showed up, and Batman says that the standoff would have gone all night, and they could have easily lost lives. Then he tells Gordon that he needs him on something else. Gordon says that he can't just keep disappearing whenever Batman shows up, and that he should be down on the street helping his people clean up after this, instead of up here talking to Batman. Batman seemingly ignores what he just said and tells Gordon that he needs whatever he can get on Peter Skoda and his crew. And Gordon just begins fuming and says, "Are you even listening to me? Has it ever occurred to you, maybe you need us more than we need you?" Then a GCPD officer calls up to Gordon, and Gordon tells Batman to get the hell out of here. Batman says that they'll talk about Gordon's role later, but he really does need that file summary. And Gordon tells Batman that it's gonna be a while before Batman sees Gordon again. And then he tells the Cape Crusader that if he wants someone to run his goddamn errands for him, he better get a butler. Which kind of follows the line of thinking from year one that Gordon does know who Batman is. They do meet face to face without the mask and everything. Gordon says that, I'm blind without my glasses, so I can't really, you're just a bunch of squiggly shapes. But is that true, or is that Gordon having plausible deniability. I always like the idea that he found out in year 1 and has just sort of known since then. Anyway, the next day at the hospital, Nora sits in her hospital bed as Victor arrives with a red rose for her. They talk briefly before the doctor shows up and asks to speak to Victor privately.
My initial diagnosis would be Huntington's. It's a degenerative disease of the central nervous system. And you've halted it, right? Huntington's can't be halted, and there's ongoing research for treatments, but it's not terminal, is it? Not in itself, but the progress of the disease is incapacitating, and there will be dementia symptoms soon. But how could she have caught something like this? She didn't catch it. It's hereditary. It's been there since she was born. Look, if you have any children, I would strongly advise having them screened immediately. No children. Not yet. Well, Mr. Fries, we do have counselors who will be able to
need a
help you.
counselor. We need someone who can fix this.
I understand that.
No, this wasn't how our lives were supposed to be. I'll do something. I'll think of something. I will. Later that night, Batman sits in the Batcave working on something when Alfred shows up to change his bandages. Bruce complains that Gordon and Harvey Dent focus too much on procedural details as he retches off his suit to reveal his damaged body beneath. Bruce then says that Alfred was right. He does need reliable help. Gordon and Dent won't go so far for him, which is why Batman will pick out his own people.
This episode is brought to you by My Comics, specifically the Custodians Agents of Cross, which I am serializing over on my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos. It's over 60 pages of pure comics for only $15, but you can see it serialized weekly over on my Patreon for as little as $2. It is a love letter to the Silver Age filled with fun characters, crazy stories, and even fake advertisements. I'm also serializing each issue of Destructo Boy, a fun sci-fi zany epic that is fit for the whole family and follows a little robot on a giant space station as he battles crime, villainy, and giant monsters and whatever threats should arise to his home. Each weekly serialized post includes commentary and annotations on the comic. I am also posting commentary tracks for the MCU, the Snyderverse, and any movies in general over at Pop Pop Popcorn, which I will be posting a audio commentary track of any movie and a follow-up discussion video. There's also behind-the-scenes progress posts of The Custodians as I am working on it, original art, and much more. Gerard Van Dalen, former Green Beret. It gave him the only thing he wanted in life, a sense of purpose. But 6 months later, he had a dishonorable discharge instead. The randomly chosen scapegoat for a higher-up scandal. Huh? Somebody there? Wound him up tight and cut him loose, like a missile with no guidance system. A hammer in a world full of nails. Nobody better be messing with me. If nobody takes the reins, he's going to hurt someone. I know what he needs. Put the gun down. I have an offer you want to hear. Amy Ross has been with the FBI 4 years as a forensic analyst. According to her psych eval, she's always had somewhat of an idealized view of the agency. They have her chasing trivial evidence to catch small-time fools. Hello, Miss Ross. I'm wondering if you're satisfied with your current job. Dave Rubens is great with electronics and terrible with people. He has his shop on 79th and little else. He invents and innovates, but never shows anyone his work. He distrusts because he's never been shown trust. No one has offered a hand. I'm looking to get some good people together. This card lists a time and a place, and I'd like you to be there. He lacks a sense of community. I can provide what he craves. Myra Sharan has written very good books on the psychology of criminal behavior, but her ideas are revolutionary to her peers. As a result, she's been relegated to pop culture paperbacks, and she wants to make a difference. I'd like you to contribute to something I'm working on. As a consultant, your last book suffered from its lack of direct experience, and I'd imagine you'd like stronger anecdotal data for the next one. Luis Diaz is an ex-con trying to do the right thing now. Unfortunately, what he's good at is criminal work. The longer he busses tables, the more he thinks about how much he used to make with his old connections.
So I'd be working for you full-time?
Correct. Paid legitimately through a dummy employer every week. Undeclared cash bonuses on the side.
Okay, well, I won't hurt nobody for you, and I ain't carrying a piece, you understand?
Are you in?
Oh, I'm 6 kinds of in, man.
He just wants a fat roll of bills once in a while. He wants to feel like a player again. Like a success. I can take him there.
Sometime later, in a just absolutely incredible splash page, Batman tours the apartment headquarters that he's set up for his new team. Thrice, you can't do this!
I can, and I will.
Don't you realize if you take her out of our care...
Oh, she'll be in care, Doctor. Just not yours.
Can we drive through the countryside? I want to watch the sun go down.
Of course, honey. We can do anything.
Are you sure they're okay with this?
Of course they are. It's a weekend and I'm the project manager. It's my creation. I should get the say for what it's used for, not them. We should be helping people. Helping life. Not destroying it. Don't worry, honey. It'll work fine.
I'm not worried. Not anymore. Victor? Whatever happens, I love you.
I know you do. 31, okay. 85 Kelvin on the... No. No, wait, that's not right. That is not right. It's all wrong. This isn't... It's not running my checklist. This isn't the medical program. Someone changed the parameters last night. Why would... Oh my god. The weapon demo. Park, he's had them running the military tests without me. Nora! Oh my god, it's going to kill her! I should have checked everything one more time. Shut it down, shut it down, I need to shut it down. Please. No, don't let it be too late. Please, Nora! Nora, are you okay? Nora, are you okay? Nora, oh, please, Nora, please. My project. The whole time, all they ever wanted was never a deterrent. They always wanted a damn weapon. They always... I should have known. I should have seen this. Always, it was always meant to kill. It's all gone. Gone and dead. Everything I wanted to make. Everything we had. I'm so sorry, Nora. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. I love you.
The Bat Squad has now officially formed, and Batman speaks to them like Charlie from Charlie's Angels over a television screen. He says he's confident in each of them, and in time, they will become confident in each other. Batman begins running down the list of duties. Luis Diaz will be recon, acquiring evidence. Dr. Sharan will be their primary researcher and profiler, along with medical response when it becomes necessary. Note that he says when it becomes necessary. Miss Ross will assist in research and conduct forensic analysis both in lab and field. Rubens will work surveillance and provide the team with increasingly better tools, as he now does not have to worry about a budget at all. And finally, Mr. Van Dalen will provide general muscle in the field and act as backup during operations when action is needed. No killing, no firearms. Something that Van Dalen is very upset by. Batman then says that they are to avoid situations in which protecting themselves will be required. Eventually, the Bat Squad will also become self-guided and in touch with each other, only checking in with Batman occasionally. but they will hold regular meetings and Batman may contact them through other means if necessary. And under each of their seats, like a weird vigilante Oprah, are documents outlining in further detail what he feels their contributions to the group should be, along with a dossier of information on the organization and individuals that are their first targets. Batman then says that they'll talk here every night at the same time until the team is fully ready. And then he says goodbye. Everyone returns every night afterward, and not only do they discuss documentation, they also want to talk technique. So Batman begins instructing them on how to do what they need to do, such as gaining access to their target's lines of communication, regular monitoring, learning to recognize who is who by their voice, studying layers via blueprints. I like that he calls them layers for some reason. Studying layers via blueprints and schematics and discreetly surveying when they cannot obtain actual records. Learning routines, what their targets drive, where they go for fun, what they do on and off the job, etc. Batman decides it is finally time for the Bat Squad to find out what Peter Skoda is really up to. Van Dalen proposes they strong-arm some of Skoda's guys, but Batman shoots it down because as soon as their actions become overt, Skoda's going to start taking steps to obfuscate. Then he orders that they will only brief every other day, and as the squad begins getting a better handle on Skoda and his people. Bruce also keeps tabs on Skoda and his team through his tried-and-true character, Matches Malone. Eventually, the team learns of some kind of demo that is going down, and they believe that it's something that Skoda plans on buying. The team's also started making use of their initials. Instead of calling each other by name or code names, they just call each other by their initials. Batman says it's to speed up conversations. I think it's dumb. Anyway, they begin sifting through possible locations of the demo, which was said to be taking place at one of Skoda's warehouses. And eventually, Luis finds something within one of the locations, and he collects a sample of that thing for Ross, who determines it to be a tissue of animal, most likely a dog, and she determines that whatever it was caused deep cellular trauma to turn that dog into that glop of nothing. So there's something weird going on.
Oh, please let me die! How could they do this to us?
They didn't do this, Victor. You did. You almost let them win, Victor.
Nora, is that you? But you're dead.
If I was dead, honey, would I be talking to you? They almost sent me away forever, Victor. But I'm holding on. For you. You have to stop them. They're going to do horrible things, Victor. You have to go back. You have to try harder. You created a terrible thing and you must not let them use it. If you don't stop them, all of them, Victor, I'll be lost forever, like melted snow.
I will. I'll stop them, darling. You'll see. I'll bring you back. They won't take you away from me. I won't let them. Yes, darling. I'll stop them. Yes, Nora. The team first. But my body is endothermic now. How will I... Ah, yes, right you are. The suit.
The briefings result in the Bat Squad telling Batman that whatever Skoda's buying is something very exotic. Van Dalen suggests it's a weapon that was demonstrated on the dog that they found. Sharan says that if it is a weapon, it highly suggests military involvement. Then Rubens alerts everyone that Skoda just called his seller, who confirmed that the deal is happening in 2 nights. And they got a location. Sometime later at 6 a.m. in a site strangely reminiscent of the new Batman film, Batman meets Detective Gordon up on the scaffolding of a construction site. Gordon tells Batman that he finally has something on Skoda. He's apparently making his move tonight, and Gordon then apologizes for his outburst and says that it wasn't very professional. Batman begins overlooking the file Gordon brought for him as Gordon asks where Batman has been these past couple weeks, and Batman kind of brushes it away and says that he has a side project he's been working on. Later, Batman arrives at the Bat Squad HQ to find Rubens and Diaz. He informs the two that the police are moving against Skoda tonight, and he's come to make sure that the team is ready to be there when it happens. And he inspects some of the new tracking devices that Rubens created, and Batman tells them that this is exactly how he hoped it would go. Then he orders them all to read the files he's procured and to be ready for a meeting at noon. At 7:50 a.m., Alfred says how nice it is to finally have Bruce back in the house and actually eating all the breakfast that Alfred makes for him every day. Bruce says that the team has exceeded his expectations and that Alfred was totally right. Alfred says he's glad that Bruce can finally slow down on the pace that he's been at, and Bruce is like,
"Why would I slow down when I've doubled my effectiveness, Alfred?"
And then he's like, once Skoda and that case gets put away, I'm going to need to start thinking of long-term stuff, Alfred, because the Bat Squad is going to be a thing that sticks around. I'm going to be using the Bat Squad all the time. It's never going to stop. We're going to be the awesome Bat Squad. And I'm going to have to come up and figure out like a real challenge for him. At 8:05 a.m., the members of Victor's team finally arrive at the lab after being called down here by Victor for some sort of emergency. They find the place completely ruined after someone shut down the safety system and flooded the area with cryonic material. One of the men, who looks a lot like Egon Spengler, finds Victor's wife frozen in a large block of ice. The third guy discovers that the gun and suit are gone, and Groucho Marx wonders if Victor found out that he was being cut out of the program. And then they wonder where Victor is, since he was the one that called them all here. At 12:45 p.m., Batman and the squad continue their meeting. Batman says that Skoda's meeting is at 9 p.m., and he wants to be in place before that, but after the police have set themselves up. Batman has to put the meeting on hold when he receives a call from Gordon. Gordon says that he's at Neodigum, and there have been multiple, what they think are homicides, and based on the current situation, they aren't exactly sure how many are dead. But Batman is definitely going to want to check this out. At 2 p.m., the Bat Squad conduct an interim assignment. Luis and Rubens head into the crime scene in disguise as Batman keeps Chief Detective Gordon's attention. Rubens is tasked with acquiring data from the Neodigum research systems, while Amy Ross samples the forensic evidence available on the scene, and Luis gets as close as he can to witness interviews, specifically the head of the research department, Mr. Derek Park. Later, the team reveals what they learned to Batman, which is pretty much everything that we've seen in the book so far. Luis reveals that he learned that Park and Fries were arguing a lot regarding the project, and that Fries had been considered for an upcoming round of layoffs. The team proposes that Fries could have been trying to use the machine to treat his terminally ill wife, but Amy says that there's no way that the machine that did this was ever meant for medical use. And they all conclude that it was definitely a weapons system. Dr. Sharan says that if Victor Fries tried to use the machine to treat his wife and it didn't work, it's likely he would blame his teammates and then create a scenario that brings them to the lab where he induces failure of the project, killing himself and them. And Batman's like, well, shit, done deal. We solved another one. Good job, team. That was quick. Let's get back to that Skoda thing. That night, the GCPD have already set up in position around Skoda's meetup point. Van Dalen and Ross sneak into position while Luis and Rubens stake out the road in a surveillance truck, and Batman overlooks the entire thing. Then a man appears, approaching from the west, and he passes right by Amy, who recognizes him as Derek Park. Park heads over to Skoda's lookout guards and tries to explain that there has been a complication, but he's sent inside to meet Skoda. Gordon also recognizes Park, right as two cops walk up to Luis and Rubens at their truck. They quickly close the back door and try to play it off cool, but one of the cops says that he's got to call this in and tells the guys that it should be quick. Unfortunately, Van Dalen, fixing for a fight, leaves his position, races down the alley, and kicks and tosses the crap out of these two guards, sending them both over a bridge and into a canal, and he tells the team to get back into the truck and pick up Amy, because the mission's been aborted. Gordon is alerted that two of his men were just attacked near a truck containing various radio equipment, as Skoda's goons notice Amy fleeing the scene and open fire on the truck as the GCPD make their presence known. So shit has hit the fan. Skoda and the others are then apprehended, and the Bat Squad return to their HQ worried about Amy, who was grazed in the leg, and what Batman is going to have to say about all this.
I came as soon as I got your message. What's going on?
You know damn well what's going on. Months of preparation leading up to tonight. Wasted. All of it wasted because someone crashed the scene. You know, Skoda walked, clean as a whistle, So did that Park guy. And not only did you know about it, I bet you know more than I do! It's one thing to see some unfamiliar faces at a crime scene, but when those same faces come smashing through my stakeout not 8 hours later... All this time I thought you were staying out of my hair. I guess I know what your side project was. Congratulations, you played me like a chump.
Jim, I don't know what you're talking about.
Stop it! I'm tired of this. We're done. The next time that you get in my face, I'm arresting you.
2 days later, Batman climbs his way into the Bat Squad HQ where Dr. Sharan is alone. She tells him that the team took the initiative and has started investigating Derek Park and Neo Digim. She then tells him that he can't keep viewing the team as mechanical extensions of his own will. Batman says that's not what he's doing, but she says that he hired her to assess motives, and she can see his motives pretty clearly. She tells him that Luis and Rubens were really rattled by their close call with the cops, especially Luis, since he's still on parole. And Van Dalen, surprisingly enough, is the one who's keeping the whole team together. Later that night at Skoda's manor, Skoda meets with Park, and Skoda wonders exactly how Park's setback is any concern of his. Park says that he just needs help finding whoever killed his team and stole the weapon before the police do. And meanwhile, the Bat Squad sneak around the area, listening in on the conversations and placing trackers on all the vehicles. When Amy notices something heading towards the manor and tells everyone to get to cover. Skoda's home is blown up as shards of ice and cryogenic material blast through the wall, and Mr. Freeze enters the house and begins unloading his gun onto anyone who gets in his way as he looks for Skoda and Park. Skoda uses his trusty handgun to take on Mr. Freeze, who is entirely bulletproof in his military outfit, and freezes Skoda. Park then races through the home, narrowly dodging Freeze's blasts, and smashes himself through a window and into the backyard. Park runs away to the back wall as Batman leaps down from the rooftop and Luis helps Park escape.
Dr. Fries, listen to me. You don't have to do this.
You're not one of them. You wouldn't save them, would you? Nora, what should I do? I don't. Why are you trying to stop me? You should be helping me. Nora, I need you. Help me.
What happened to Skoda?
He's dead. I got Derek Park out, and the cops will get him soon. Here, let me get your legs out. The tracker control, DR. Give it to me.
But
Give it to me, David, or I'll break your fucking arm and take it.
later at the Bat Squad HQ, the team tries to figure out where Van Dalen went. Ruben says that he stole the only working tracker they had, and it's going to be a couple days before he can get a new one set up. And they tell Batman that Van Dalen is unhinged. Luis also says that this Freeze guy isn't human. They don't have the training or expertise to deal with something like him. And Batman says that he's just as surprised as they are, but they're going to have to be careful next time. Amy says that there's not going to be a next time and leaves, followed by Luis, who pleads with Batman to find Van Dalen before someone gets hurt. Rubens asks how Batman can just let them leave like that, especially after they've stuck their necks out to join this group, and then he leaves to try and convince the two to come back.
My enemies are multiplying, darling. Why is the Batman fighting me? I'm not his enemy. They are. Those criminals and murderers. Even the city is changing.
Remember how lovely we thought it was when we first moved here? I don't even recognize it sometimes with all this construction.
Well, what do you know? There he is. DR's trackers really do work. Alright, come on. Turn a little to the right. Let me see that big ice cube.
Okay, let's go with plan B.
Nora! Nora! No, 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 no! Nora! Oh, God, darling. I failed you. I failed you again. Oh, no.
I'm still here, Victor. But you'll have to work much harder to bring me back.
Sometime later, Rubens, who is now finished working on another tracker, and Sharan work on reassembling the Bat Squad as Bruce apologizes to Alfred for overstretching not just himself, but everyone he's worked with. Bruce then walks to the window of the manor as Alfred says that he should return to the team and at least see if Van Dalen did succeed in killing Victor Fries. And Bruce notices that it's begun snowing. A lot. In the Batcave, Bruce prepares to head into Gotham. Alfred notes that the Bat Squad made a brief stop at the HQ, and Batman makes note that he really needs an all-terrain car. But for now, he's gonna ski. So Batman skis through Gotham. He arrives at the Bat Squad HQ and finds it empty and discovers a package waiting for him. A note attached says that the team are going after Van Dalen using extra trackers that he had on his person. They also left a special polymer cover for Batman's cape that Amy and Rubens made up to help Batman fight off the cryonic process, to act as a kind of deterrent against the freeze gun. The note finishes by saying that after this is over, they need to talk about the future. Meanwhile, in the snow-covered streets of Gotham, Jim Gordon's snowplow is ambushed by Mr. Freeze, and Victor Freeze freezes some police officers before he announces that they only get one warning before he kills them all. Then Batman leaps down from a building and kicks Freeze off of his icy perch. Mr. Freeze opens fire on Batman, who uses his new polymer cape to shield himself from the cryogenic blasts. Freeze falls into the snow, and as he's about to blast his newly upgraded weapon, Batman attacks him, shattering Freeze's helmet, causing nitrogen or whatever to shoot out, I guess, and everyone backs away as the area is filled with cryonic gas and smoke. Finally it fades, but Victor is nowhere to be seen. Batman prepares to give chase to Freeze when Gordon says that he can help. Batman tells his chum that he's sorry for what he did and that he was wrong to act in the manner that he was. But he needs to make sure that his people don't get in over their heads. And then he tells Gordon that this was the wrong approach and it's not going to happen again.
Oh, Jesus. I found him. I found Gerard. God, what kind of thing would do this?
David, I found the machine. Do I just smash it?
You'll probably be soaked by cryonic fluid. Just hold on, I'll be right up there.
Get away from it. You're just like the others, aren't you? Well, it's mine. None of you can have it. You're going to ruin everything.
Nobody's ruined anything, Victor. The world changes whether we like it or not.
Not anymore.
Myra, what's...
Trying to distract me while your friends sneak up? They shall die as well. Yes, Nora, you're right. Let's start with her eyes. If you dare touch her, I will be the one who breaks you into little pieces. But how could you? How can you do this? Nora, what do I do?
Come to me, Victor. I'm here.
Yes, darling, save me!
No, Victor, don't! The river.
1 week later, the remaining members of the team and a now armless Mira Sharan arrive at the Bat Squad HQ to tell Batman their decision. Luis walks in first and discovers the entire apartment has been emptied. And he turns to his former team and says that Batman already knows their decision. Later at Wayne Manor, Bruce reads the paper as Alfred wonders if Mr. Freeze will ever return. Bruce says that he's sure of it, and notes that things really are changing. Mr. Freeze isn't like anything he's ever faced before, and he's sure that there's going to be more like him to come. Alfred asks about Bruce's backup. Bruce says that he doesn't need a team. He just needs someone to watch his back. And then he turns the newspaper to a page advertising that the Flying Graysons are on tour. And he puts it down and says that he'll have to keep his eyes open for the right thing to come along. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What Is. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Leave suggestions as well for any comments you'd like to see. Leave suggestions below for any comics you'd like to see me cover in the future. Who's your favorite version of Mr. Freeze? I bet it's probably going to be the animated series. That is just the pinnacle of Mr. Freeze. From the voice to the look to the story. Perfect. Arkham version of Mr. Freeze is pretty cool. And I don't know who else. The Harley Quinn version, I guess, are probably the three most well-known and well-recognized ones, I'd imagine. And, of course, let me know what you thought of this comic in the comments below. Like I said at the beginning, I love this book, and this was a great reread. I really enjoyed it. It's just, I really like Mr. Freeze as a character to begin with, and I also really like him being an early supervillain, if not the first supervillain that Batman faces. Obviously, that doesn't make sense from like a metatextual standpoint, since Mr. Freeze, or Mr. Zero as he was known when he first showed up, he wasn't around until about 1959. So if you want to go like, oh, well, technically the Joker is first because he's first appeared in the comics first and he's the first supervillain, blah, blah, it doesn't work that way. But I think that this really shows that the premise stands on its own. It doesn't need to be Joker or Riddler or whoever else, Hugo Strange, to be Batman's first real supervillain. You can just go all in on Mr. Freeze and it'll work. I really think that this works really well, and if Mr. Freeze is the villain for the Batman 2, which people have been hoping for, and rumors have been abound that that's who it'll be for, seems like since the film came out, I really hope that the people working on the Batman 2 pull inspiration from this story, because it's a slightly altered retelling of what we think of when we think of Mr. Freeze's origins, but it's not completely out there. It's pretty, there's the whole Victor Freeze hallucinating dead angel, Nora, or whatever, that happens in his mind. There's that. That's probably the weirdest aspect of this origin. It's not as drastic as, like, Scott Snyder's Mr. Freeze origin. Both of these take the premise from Heart of Ice and rework them into something new and different. Only this time it works, and in Scott Snyder's version it doesn't. But anyway, I also like the idea of the Bat Squad as this like proto-Bat family that Batman has. I just think it's really cool, and I like the characters. And it's also funny that this story is it advocates that... It's also funny that this story advocates against the Bat family existing, because in the end it's like, oh, all Batman needs is Robin and someone to watch his back. He doesn't need a whole force of people working beneath him. But the characters are interesting, and I'd love to see them come back, because they never have. No one's ever used these characters ever again. They were never used for anything else after this 5 issues. And I feel like the ones that would work the best are Luis Diaz and Myra Sharan. Sharan is kind of like Leslie Tompkins in a way, I suppose. And Luis, he is probably the most fleshed out of the characters, I feel. He gets the most screen time with Batman, and they seemingly have a history together. Batman's probably the reason that Luis was in jail to begin with, and he was like, oh, well, I should keep this name in my Bat Rolodex, because I feel like I can get use from him somehow in the future. I like their back and forth and how they have a seemingly pre-established history with each other. But yeah, those two characters I think would work the best out of all 5, 6 of the Bat Squad. Well, one of them's dead, but I think those two would probably work the best if you were to bring them into modern Bat continuity. And of course, there's Seth Fisher's brilliant cartooning abilities and art style. How can you not love it? It's just so much fun, and the colors work so well on top of the art, like I said before. I just love it so much. I'd highly recommend you check out any more of Seth Fisher's works. I've read just about all of them from Marvel and DC. I think there's a couple of like indie ones that I need to pick up, but they're all fantastic. And I plan on covering Fantastic Four Iron Man Big in Japan, Green Lantern Will World and Flash Time Flies, just because they're so much fun and just a great series. Great little couple issues. They're fast reads. They just look great. They're neat books. So look forward to those sometime in the future. As always, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos, where you get early access to videos when available, my serialized comics posted each week, audio commentaries, original art, everything else that I'm posting on there as well. In my Etsy shop, which currently is housing Destructo Boy issues 1 through 5, and I am planning on doing a holiday bargain sale at Destructo Boy, which is going to be about $7 or so. I cut that part out. So check it out at DestructoBoyEtsy.com. So check it out. It really helps me out when you support my comics. I should be getting more issues of the Custodians within the new year. So within the next month or so. Sometime in January, I'm going to be getting them reprinted and getting them, settled back in for a physical copy, so you can purchase them for only $15. Over 60 pages, only $15. That is far better value and deal than anything you'll get from Marvel or DC these days. But again, let me know what you thought of the comic in the comments below. I will see you next time for a very interesting take on Superman. Bye!